Oh, we are live now. Andrew.
Okay, start பண்ணிடலாங்களா?
Yeah, please go ahead.
கேக்குதுங்களா நான் பேசுறது?
Yeah, take a.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to GATS Bootcamp Python session 3. Today is the last session. We planned for 4 sessions, but we are only doing 3 because school will start next week. So, after this session, please do feedback form. Actually, okay. Let's start our session. I request Jaishnav and Ashwin to continue today's session. Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Today is going to be Python session 3. And like Tungri Auntie said, it is the last session. So, yeah, that's it. Let's go to the.
All right, so I'd like two volunteers to share us their phone.
Can I show my phone work? Can I
Yes.
show?
Yes, go ahead. Just share your screen to the class. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. Yeah, we can run it when it says you can run for president. But 40, 40 years old. 30. Yeah, run it where it says you can run for president. Just put the age as like 40. You put 30. It has to be above 35, right? All right, nice. Nice. Well done.
Nice.
Nice code as well.
Also, code looks very efficient. Just one more side thing about the code. Make sure you're putting your parentheses around your if statements. I know it works without the parentheses, obviously, but it's just good practice to do that now because as you go into more complex programming languages, it's going to require you to put parentheses. So it's just good practice to put parentheses around your if statements. Other than that, looks really good. Nice job.
All right, anyone else? One more person. One more person you want to share? Nobody? Anybody else?
Alright, we'll just move on to the homework that we did. I mean, the way that we did the homework.
If no one does it, then fine, sure. I'll share it. Okay, so the answer that we came up with over here. First, you have a variable called age, right? You assign it to input was your int because the answer is going to be an integer. Then you have a variable called born, right? That's what we have. We have a variable called born, and you ask them, were you born in the U.S.? Yes or no. Variable called citizen that we made. So how long have you been U.S. citizen for, right? Once you ask all that, if the age is greater than or equal to 35, and if they were born in the U.S., and if they've been a citizen for greater than or equal to 14 years, then print eligible to run for president, or else just print that. It's loading.
Mm. So it's just connectivity issues.
The chat's not appearing. So slow.
Just now.
Yeah, sorry, it's loading so slowly. Should I just go on? I mean, of course, the code's gonna
Mm.
work, just like how Sri showed us.
Everyone
Right.
got the logic behind the code, guys. We're just having little Wi-Fi issues. But if everyone got the logic behind how the code works, I can guarantee you it works. It's just that I want everyone to understand what we did. Right? Anyone have any questions on the homework? You can type in chat if your mic doesn't work or anything. You can just type in chat.
Chat is just full.
Alright, let's see this.
The chat's not opening for me for some reason. Can you check it?
Yeah, I'll check it. We're just gonna move on to the actual session now.
Wait, I'm gonna reload it one more time.
Okay.
Okay, wait. I think it's
Coming.
yeah. You know, I'm just gonna move on to the okay. Option. Should I just?
Yeah. If everyone understands the logic behind it, then
Everyone's good with it, right?
is everyone good with the homework?
Yes.
All right. We'll move on to the actual lessons.
All right. Go.
Yeah. All right. So the first thing we're going to be learning are something called lists. And lists are just like remember in the first session we learned about data types and the different type of data types like strings, integers, floats, etc. Well, a list is just like a data type, except it's very special because it can hold several different data types in and of itself, right? I know that makes not a lot of sense, but I'm just gonna have you look at this little syntax I have on the bottom here. So how you make a list, the syntax is you type in the variable name, which can be anything. In my case, it's just called list, and then you set it equal to, and then you have to have square parentheses right here in the front and the end. And instead of round parentheses, because a list doesn't take in round parentheses, it takes in square parentheses. So that's why you have square parentheses. And inside that, you can have your indexes. And indexes are just fancy way of saying like you can have your string or you can have your number inside of this. And each index has to be separated by a comma. So you can have index 1, comma, index 2, comma, index 3, so on and so forth. I'm going to show you an example of how to create lists and how to use them in REPL. So if you just move on to REPL here. Please now. Please now. Yeah. Alright. So on REPL here, and remember the syntax for the list is just name equals and then square parentheses, and inside you put in your indexes, right? This now. Is it loaded in?
Sorry, bro.
Is it loaded in the screen?
I don't know why this is happening.
Got it. Sorry guys, we're gonna be a little pinched for time because of this Wi-Fi thing. If you have any questions anywhere during the session, just ask, alright? We're gonna be going a little fast because of this whole Wi-Fi thing.
Yeah, I'll be back.
Alright. Yeah, we're trying everything. And then it seems to load it or something. By the way, I know some people are asking, but we are gonna have a homework this session, but obviously it's not actually gonna be required of you to do it because I'm not gonna see you again after this. But if you do want to increase your Python skills and become better, there is a little homework after this, so you can try it at your own pace, and you can just build off there. This whole course is just a building block for you to be able to go into more advanced Python and then even other programming languages. Like it's a really, really good beginner building block for you to just branch out to programming. Yeah. You working? Yes. Finally, it started working. Nice. Yes, how are you then?
Yes, it finally worked. Sorry.
It's
That's good.
working.
That's good. That's good.
Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, sorry everyone.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone. I had
Alright.
to change location.
Alright.
I
Alright, now we're talking about lists, right? Lists. So I'm gonna show you an example of a list here. And by starting off, how do you make a list? You basically just put in the variable name, equal sign, and then in parentheses, you just put in like all of your indexes, right? So I'm gonna show you an example of that. I'm gonna create a list and I'm gonna name it numbers because this list is gonna be full of numbers, right? So I'm gonna name it numbers and set it equal to, and then square parentheses there. And inside the square parentheses, you can put in all of your numbers and then separate them by commas, right? So let's just
Ashwin, your video stopped.
code right now. Nothing actually happens. Nothing
Ashwin,
actually happens because
your video was not available until now. Go. We can't hear you. Okay,
numbers.
so what he has here, right?
Hello. Hello?
basically he has a list of numbers, right? He has a list of numbers. He has 4 numbers in here. All right, it can be any number he wants, right? He's printing out the whole list right here.
Was that a question someone asked?
No, Ashwin, we couldn't hear you or see you for like a minute.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can.
Oh,
No.
sorry. Wait, it's a bit close, sorry.
I explained it.
All right. Can everyone hear me now? Is it breaking up?
No, you're good now.
I'm good. All right. All right.
It was
Maybe when I continue. It was. Yeah, I know it was breaking up. Sorry. Yeah, can everyone? I'm pretty sure everyone can hear me clearly now, right?
Yes, go.
All right.
yes.
All right. So we put in this list full of numbers, right? And we're separating them by commas. And then after that, we're basically just right. And now if we run this code right here, you can see that it just prints out the list with the parentheses and just like that, right? And there's actually something more you can do with this. What if you want to just print out a specific number from the list? So let's say you just want to print out the number from the list, right? Well, what do? Well, there's actually a way you can actually just isolate a certain number in a list, and you can do that using the code I'm about to show you right here. So let me make some space here. All right, so what you type in is you type in the name of your list, which in our case it's numbers, and then you put in a square parentheses right after that, and inside these square parentheses, you're going to type in the position of your number. So the position, like, what do I mean by position? By position, I mean like, okay, so the number 4 in our list is the first number that comes up, so its position is 1, right? And number 8 in our list is the second one, 2, so on and so forth, right? We want to print out the number 56, and 56 is in the third position, right? So we put down the number 3 here, and this code will isolate the number 56 in our list. And we actually have to print this out because we can just leave it like that. So I'll print out this here. Actually, I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna put it after when I print out the list. Okay? All right, and now if you see, you're actually gonna see something, an error occur here. Not like an actual error, like a technical error, right? I run this code, and as you see, it doesn't actually print out 56 like we wanted to. It prints out 34. Why did that happen? We said we want to print out the third number in our list. Why does this happen? Well, it's because Python doesn't count like us. It doesn't count like humans. We count 1, 2, 3, 4, so on and so forth. But Python starts at 0. So it starts at 0 and goes 0, 1, 2, 3. Whenever Python counts, it always starts with 0. And that's why when we put in the number 3 here, it prints out 34. Because if we go through our list, by Python standards, right, the number 4 is actually in the 0th position. And the number 8 is in the first position. The number 56 is in the second position. And the number 34 is in the third position. Because Python counts with 0 in the beginning, right? So if you want to print out 56, we don't actually have to type in 3, we actually have to type in 2. Right? And now if we run this code, and you can see in the output screen here, it correctly prints out the number that we want, which is 56. Obviously, this is not limited to just numbers lists. You can make lists that are strings as well. So I'm going to create a list with just a bunch of words in it, like hello, and then I don't know, welcome. And I'm gonna these 3 words and these 3 strings are inside this list, and notice how they're all separated by commas, right? And so now let's say we want to print out the word welcome, right, which is the last word in the string in the list. So all you have to do is have to print, and inside the print statement you type in the name of the string, the name of the list, which is words, and then in square parentheses you type in the position it's in. So hello is in the 0th position, hi is in the 1st position, and welcome is in the 2nd position. So we type in 2 here, and we run the code, and as you can see in the output screen, it correctly says welcome, right? This is basics of how to use lists and how to access specific numbers in lists. As basically, did anyone have any questions about lists? How to isolate certain numbers inside of a list. Any questions? Any
Can
questions?
you isolate two numbers?
Well, let's see. Maybe if you type in like a comma here. I don't actually know. We'll see. Does it show an error? It does. So I don't think if you want to print out two numbers at the same time, you actually have to use another data type called tuple. And I would cover it, but because of the Wi-Fi thing, we just don't have enough time to cover it. But if you want to do some self-research, you can. It's called a tuple, T-U-P-L-E, a tuple. And if you use that data type, you can make two numbers appear at the same time. We're just running really short on time right now. So I'm sorry I couldn't answer your question there. You got it? Okay, I did. Got it.
Okay, Ashwin, you want to explain the -1?
This time.
All right, sure. Okay, whatever. All right, so
Now
next,
there's no questions about lists, right? No questions? Looks like we're good. All right.
next we'll be learning about for loops. For loops can be used to repeat things a certain number of times in your code. You can use lists and strings in them. So the syntax would be like this. This is an example of syntax, right? So for x in range parentheses number colon tab print something in parentheses, right? So x over here, it's a variable that I make on the spot. You make it on the spot, right? And then so you're printing out x in the range of this many times, this number of times, right? You're printing out this print statement here, this number of times, whatever you put inside the range. So I can show you that in Rebel here. So let's say we have a for loop for x in range 5, right? And x in range 5, print the word hi. If we run this, right, it's going to say for x in range 5. So for everything, for this thing in range 5, print this, right? So it's going to print out hi 5 times. The range is 5. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? That's 5 times. You change this to 4, it's going to print out 4 times, right? You can do any number. You can call this any variable. Let's call this, what, J? Let's call it JK. I don't know. Anything. You can call it anything. Still works, right? So you can print out things like that by repeating it. You can also use lists in it. So let's make a list called my list. Here. And let's have it equal to a set of numbers. 1, 2, and 3. All right. So now let's make a for loop for numbers in my list. All right. I'm making a variable called numbers. So basically, I'm just saying for every number inside my list, right? For number, let's say number in my list, right? Print hi again. Right? So now if we do this, it's going to print out hi 3 times. Because for every number, you have to print out hi once. So how many numbers are there? 3 numbers. So how many times are you going to print out hi? 3 times. So instead of range here, as you can see, we have just the name of the list, the variable, right? So when you do that, it's going to take in how many ever items are in the list, and it's going to have that as the number of times you're going to repeat it. So if we run this right now, it's going to print out hi 3 times. Okay? What if you want to print out everything inside the list, like 1, 2, 3, right? You have to print the variable that's here. For number in my list, print the number. For every number in my list, print that number. The first Python goes, okay, take every number in my list. First number is 1. So then you have to print 1, right? The second number is 2. Print out 2. So it's going to do it like that, right? So then now it's going to print out 1, 2, and 3. Okay? What if you want to print out the whole list, right? My list, right? Right now, if I print this out, it's going to print out the whole list 3 times because the range is 3 because there are 3 numbers in it. It's going to print out the whole list 1, 2, 3, 3 times in a row like that. Okay? So everyone understands so far, right? So yeah, like I said, you can use lists inside as well. You can put them regularly with the range as well. It doesn't have to be one number. It can be any number, right? It can be 12. It can be 24, 36. It can be, you can have more. You can have so many more, like 7, right? You print this out, it's going to print out that it's going to print out 12, 24, 36, 7 4 times because there are 4 numbers here. 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay? So it can be any number as well. So if statements and elif statements, else statements, those all can be placed inside the for loop as well. So let's have an if statement here. If the number equals double equal sign, remember that from last class, 12, print I like the number 12. How about that? Let's change these back to like 4, change this to 3, let's change this, yeah, let's have it like that. How about that? That's simpler to work with. Alright, so elif number is equal to 4, we're going to print out you are 4th place. How about that? Let's copy this code and put it for the last. Alright, so now I'm taking this out, we're putting 3. Let's just make this simple. Let's just call this third, and 7th. Alright. Now if we run this, Python's going to take every single number. So for every number in the list, so first it's going to take 12. Alright, check this if statement. Is this true? Then print this out, ignore the rest. Alright, the next number, right? 4. Alright, check. Does this work? Nope. It's false. Does this work? Yes. Then print that out, right? So it's going to check it like that for every single number in our list. So right now, it's going to print this, and this in order. If you run this out, it's going to print out, I like the number 12. You are 4th place. You are 3rd place. What if we have 3 here and 4 here now? I just basically swap these two, right? You print it out, it's just going to switch these two up. This, okay. I like the number 12, it says you are 3rd and then you are 4th, instead of saying you are 4th and you are 5th. Because you see this, right? If when it checks 3, when it checks the number 3, it's going to go down. It's going to say also this is also false. So it's going to check this. This is true. Just like that for 4, it's going to check this. This is false, but this is true. So it's going to print this out. So I know how. So everyone probably knows how if statement works, right? Any questions so far? Good. Okay. So not only words, but not only numbers. The strings can also be used in lists. I mean, like, for loops, right? In lists, of course, they can use, let's say hi here. And then say hi. Next one, let's have it car. Right? Let's just have 2 because we're trying to say it. Okay, so now and let's call this variable word so that it makes sense, right? So now, if the word equals 5, say hi, not 5, hi, and over here, let's change this. If the word equals car. So if the word equals hi, let's just say hello. The word equals car, let's just say I ride that. Okay. Now if we run this out, just like last time, it's going to print out. It's not running. Oh wait, okay. So it's going to print out hello, and then I write that, like I said, right? I'm going to check this. The word equals hi, then print hello, or else print car, right? So it's going to work like that. All right. So any questions about for loops for now? We're good. Everyone's good in the chat as well. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Yeah, so no questions. All right then. Move to the next one.
All right. So the next thing we're going to be learning are called while loops. So last slide we learned for loops, and for loops, remember for loops it used a range or a number to determine how many times the loop will keep on looping. A while loop is the same sort of logic, but instead of a number, it takes in a condition. So we see the syntax on the lower left side here, while. So the syntax for a while loop is just while, and then in parentheses, you write in a condition. And if you remember our lessons from session 2 with booleans and if statements, you will know that a condition has to equal either true or false. And how this while loop works is if the condition is true, the code inside of the while loop will run, and it'll keep running, and it'll keep running until the condition becomes false. So the while loop will just continue printing out code or doing whatever you want to do until the condition inside of it equals false. And I'm going to show you an example of this in our REPL. So if you move to REPL here, it's gonna, yep, just take that out. Oops, let's do that. All right. So like I showed you in the slide, first the syntax, you type in the word while, and then parentheses, and inside the parentheses you type in your condition, right? Whatever condition that might be, a boolean, it has to be a boolean, it has to equal true or false, right? And then a colon, and then inside of this you can write your code, whatever you want it to do, right? And Python will keep on running and keep on executing this code until this condition becomes false. Let's look at an example that uses a while loop, right? So I'm going to have a variable up here called num, short for number, right? A variable called num, and I'm going to set it equal to 5. And down here, I'm going to have a while loop that says while our number up there, our variable, is less than 10. So while our number is less than 10, we want, let's say, print our number. So print our number every time our number is less than 10. If we print this out, if we run this code right now, something super interesting is about to happen. If I run this code right here, you will see that Python just keeps on printing 5 forever. There's no stop to that. I mean, I'm going to stop the code right now. But there is no stop because this condition up here in the while statement, this never becomes false because we never change it. 5 is always going to be less than 10, right? And you can't change that, and you don't change that in your while loop as well. So what you need to do is to avoid this sort of infinite loop here, is you have to change your variable inside of the while loop, right? So down here, how do you change it? Well, basically you just add, I'm just super simple. I'm just going to add 1 to it, right? So I'm going to take my original number, which is num, and I'm going to set it equal to itself plus 1. So this will, every time this loop runs, it will go through and it will add 1 to our number, which is 5. So the first time it goes through, it's going to print out 5, and then it's going to add 1 to our number, which then will become 6. And then we'll check again, okay, 6 less than 10? Yes, it is. So I'm going to print out 6, and I'm going to add 1 to number, and then it becomes 7. And then it's 7 less than 10? Yes. So on and so forth until our number becomes 10. Because 10 is not less than 10. 10 is equal to 10. So at that point, our condition will equal false, and then the loop will stop. I'm going to run this code right here, and you're going to see what I'm talking about, right? Run this code, and as you can see, our loop prints out 5 because that's our original variable, and then it adds 1, and then it prints it out again, 6, and then it adds 1, 7, 8, 9, and then after 9, our number becomes 10, and 10 is not less than 10, it's equal to 10, and that's why our loop breaks out, and it ends at 9, right? Let's say if I put number is less than 11, so while our number is less than 11, and I press run here, now it's going to go up to 10, because now it's 11, now we upped it by 1, right? Now it's going to go up to 10. That's the basic logic behind of a while loop. It keeps on repeating code until the condition inside the while loop becomes false, right? And I'm going to show you a couple more examples here with while loops. I'm actually just going to add in a bunch of if statements in here, like we did with a for loop. Just going to add a bunch of if statements. And I'm just going to show you that you can also add if else statements inside of a while loop. Now, first delete this code right here. And what do we want to say? Let's say we're going to print our number at the start. We'll print our number at the start here. So every time it goes through, it prints our number at the top. And then we're going to check a bunch of if statements. So if our number is equal to 5, we'll print out, let's say, 5 is a good number, right? And then we'll have another statement, we'll have an elif statement, right? And let's say if it's equal to 7, right? So if it's equal to 7, then we'll print out let's say 7 is my favorite number, right? And we'll add another one. Let's say one more. Let's say if our number equals 10, let's say, then let's print out this is the end of the loop, because like how our condition is structured now, once we print out 10, our loop ends. So that's why I'm saying after you print out 10, print out this is the end of the loop, right? And if it's anything else, because there's more numbers obviously, and if it's anything else, I'm just going to print out like something like hello, right? This is an example just to show you that you can use these kind of things in a while loop. And obviously, at the end of all of these if statements, we need to still increase our number by 1, because if we do this, this is just going to print out 5 as a good number over and over again. We don't want that. We never want an infinite loop, right? So now we just use the same logic that we did, and we just say num equals num plus 1, and that's the end of our code there. So while our condition up here is true, so while our number is less than 11, our loop is going to first print the number, and then it's going to check all of these conditions, right? If our number is equal to 5, it's going to see 5 is a good number. If our number is equal to 7, it's going to see 7 is my favorite number. If our number is equal to 10, I'm going to say this is the end of the loop. And if it's anything else, I'm just going to print out hello. And in the end, I'm going to up the number by 1. Okay? I'm going to run this code right here. On the right, you can see this is exactly what it does. It prints out the number first, because that's what we want it to do, prints out the number. And then it checks these if statements and these elif statements. Okay, is this statement true? Yes, it is. I'm going to ignore all the rest. Number is equal to 5, so I'm going to print out 5 as a good number. And then we add 1 to a number. And then it becomes 6. And then 6 doesn't make any of these some statements true, so we go to the else. And we just print out hello, and that's what happens. So on and so forth until we reach 10. And if our number is 10, we said we want to say this is the end of the loop. And that's what it says. This is the end of the loop. Right? And notice how it stops here, because our condition after this becomes false. Right? Any questions on how to use while loops in general? Any questions on how the logic works? Anything? Any questions? No questions? Right. Just out of here. All right, let's just move on to the next slide, I guess.
Okay, next I'm going to be talking about break and continue. So break is used to stop your while loops immediately, and then continue is used to continue the code at any point if the code is running a break. All right. So I'm going to delete this code real quick. And you know the table reservation example that we had last time? I'm going to be using that right now. Someone in the chat said something. Oh yeah, that was you. Okay. So first, let's have. So first, what are we asking? First, we're going to ask the user something, right? We're going to ask the user what their name is. So name. Okay, so name equals. What is your name? Right? What's next? Next, you have table 1, which is equal to JSNAW. And we have table 2, which is equal to Ashwin. Okay. So after this, you have to have if statements that asks the user, right? So no, that checks to see if their name matches with table 1 or table 2. So first, if name is equal to table 1, then print out. We have a table reserved for you. Right? Next, let me for now. elif name equals table 2. Let's say we have a table reserved for you, right? And if any of that doesn't work, I'm going to say else. Sorry, we do not have a table under that name. So this is what we had last time, right? When we had the table reservation code, right? So first we ask the user for the name. If it matches up with Jaishnab or Ashwin, then we print out these two. Or if it doesn't, we just say sorry, right? What if you want to ask them their name again? Like, give us a different name, right? Let's say that here. So print. Try a different name. Okay. Let's say this, right? And we're going to have a continue. So first of all, after we say, so first of all, we should have everything in a while loop, right? So while, and we're going to have something called true. So while this whole code is true, right, it's going to run, right? While it works, it's going to run. That's basically what it means, okay? So while it's true, it's going to keep on running, right? So that's what it means. Until it's false, it's going to keep on running. While it's true, they're going to ask the name. The table equals table 1. We're going to say we have a table reserved for you, Jaishnab, and then you want to break the code. You want to say break, which stops the while loop, right? Because you don't want an infinite loop, right? Because if you don't have this break right here, what will happen is after it says we have a table reserved for you, Jaishnab, it's going to say, sorry, we do not have a table under that name. Please try a different name, okay? And now also over here under Ashwin, we should have another break, which stops the code, right? Because then same reason, right? If you don't have this, it's going to say this stuff again. And now if it's not any of the other names, it's going to say else. It's going to say, sorry, we do not have a table under that name. Please try a different name. And then it's going to continue the whole program, which means it's going to ask this question again. So now let's run this program here. Let's say Jaishnab is my name. As you can see, that's all it says. It doesn't say anything else, right? It doesn't say this stuff over here. Try a different name or anything. Let's run it again. Let's do Ashwin. Same with Ashwin. It does not print any of the else, right? So what if we print out some other name like John? I'm going to say, sorry, we do not have a table under that name. Try a different name and asks you the first question again. It repeats the while loop, right? Because we have a continue here, right? So it repeats the whole while loop. So now what is your name? Now let's say Jaishnab instead. And now it's going to say we have a table reserved for you. So that's how you use break and continue, right? So break stops the while loop from happening when you need it to, and the continue, it basically makes you continue and run the whole loop again. Okay? When you have a continue, it repeats the whole code again inside the while loop. Any questions? Any questions? No, we're good. I think we're good. All right, next slide.
All right. So for this slide, we're going to break off of our loops for a little bit, and we're going to talk about something called functions. And functions are really cool in Python because they're basically like, think of them like variables, except they're longer, right? Functions are pieces of code that's in your program that won't run, and it'll only run when you call it in your program, right? And a little fun fact about functions is that we've been using functions since session 1, right? We've been using functions since like the first time we wrote code, right? What's an example of a function, right? Input. Whenever you ask the user for their name or their age or something, you have to type in the words input, and then in parentheses, you have to ask them what their name is. And input, the input is an example of a function that is created by Python. We don't actually see the code for it because it's off somewhere else, but we can access it by typing in the words input in our code, and we can access the code like that. And that's a Python function. This is created by whoever made Python, right? What if we want to make a function that does something that Python doesn't already have? Well, you can make a user-made function, which is basically a function that you make. And what's the syntax for that? Well, there's a template that you can use to create a function. And it's down here in the bottom in our slide, right? So the template, the syntax is you type in the words def, D-E-F. It's short for definition, so you're defining the function here. And after the words def, you type in the function name. This is like your variable name. It can be whatever you want, right? And then after that, you put in a pair of parentheses, and then colon, and then enter, and it tabs out. And then inside of your function, you can write whatever your code you want, and then you can call it somewhere else, right? I'm going to show you an example of how a function works in REPL here. So just move on to REPL. Take all this code out. Yeah, just take it out. All right. And we're going to go function. So remember the syntax for a function is you type in the word def, right? Short for definition. And then here you write in the name of your function, which can be anything. I'm going to make a function that prints out a bunch of greetings, right? So I'm going to call my function greeting, right? After you type in the name, of your function, so I just typed in greeting, you put in a pair of parentheses after, and then right after that you put in a colon, and inside this you can write whatever codes you want. So I'm going to type in print. I want to print out hello, right? And I also want to print out nice to meet you. So we have two different greetings inside of this function, hello and nice to meet you, right? You'll notice that if I run this code right now, if I run this, nothing actually happens, because what we've done right now is we've only made a function. We've made one. We need to use it. We need to call it in our program. How do we do that? It's very simple. You just tab out of the function like so, and in your program, you call it by writing in the name of your function, which in our case is greeting, right? And then after that, you put in a pair of parentheses. And this is how you call any function that you made inside of Python, right? And you might notice that the syntax is very similar to the input function that Python made. It's the same thing, right? The name of the function and then parentheses. The only difference is this greeting, we made it, and this input, Python made it, right? I'm just going to delete this shit. It's no use for it, right? And now if I run this code, and you can see in the output block that it says hello and nice to meet you. And the very useful thing about functions is that you can use these as many times as you want. And I can type in greeting and then parentheses, and I can just type that in forever, right? I'm going to type it in 3 times now. What this does is it calls our function 3 different times. So it executes our function 3 different times, right? So if I run this, it'll say, hello, nice to meet you 3 different times. Now, obviously, I know what you're thinking. You can further make this effective by using a for loop for x in, let's say, a range of 3, right? For x in range of 3, let's just tab this out, putting greeting. So this does this code inside the for loop 3 different times, as we've learned with for loops. So if I run this code right here, same thing, prints out hello, nice to meet you 3 different times, right? But here's the thing about functions, is they can get a bit boring if they don't change. Functions, I want my function to change depending on what the user puts in. Now, let's say I want to make a function that prints out whatever number that the user put in into the program, right? So how do you make a function like that? How do you make a function that actually takes in user input? I'm going to delete this code again. Well, you can put in a thing called a parameter. A parameter is a variable that you make within the function, and you can use that variable in your function like this. I'm going to make a variable here. I'm going to call it. Make a function here. I'm going to call it print number. And inside these parentheses right here, I'm going to type in my parameter, right? Just going to type in num, and I'll explain what this means in a second here. So I'm just going to type in num, and inside here I'm going to print num. So what num is a variable that we've just created on the spot. So num is a variable. The thing is, it doesn't have a value. Where do we give it its value? Where do we do that? Well, you can actually do that after you've made the function. So first, to get a number, you have to ask the user for a number. So let's just say number equals int input give me a number. So now a variable called number, inside this variable, we have a number that we got from the user. So how do we do this in a function? So remember how we call function, type the name of the function here, and if in parentheses. Inside of this parentheses, you can put in your variable here, number. You can put this in right here. What is do? Python reads this as, okay, so we're calling print number with a parameter known as number. So it's going to go into our function here, and it's going to replace everything you see in this parentheses in the top. It's going to replace that with whatever we got from the user. So num here is going to be replaced with number, which we got from the user, right? And you'll see if I run this code right now, you can see that in action, right? Let's run this code. Give me a number, say 4, and print this out, and Python prints out 4, right? Because it replaces the num that we have in our function with the actual number that we get from the user, right? Everyone understand how functions work and how parameters work? These are very useful in Python, and you'll use them a lot. So if you have any questions about functions, you can ask them. Any questions? No questions?
We check the chat just in case it's not opening for me.
Yeah, I'm checking. There's no questions. All right, we should just move on to the next slide.
Okay, so next we're going to be learning about exceptions. Exceptions are error within your code by default, and this stops your code from running, right? So whenever you type something wrong, it's going to say error, and it stops the whole code, right? That's an exception. The way to deal with exceptions is by using try and except, right? Which lets you handle exceptions easily. So I'll be showing you that here. So we have this question here, right? I'm going to use this first. Not this part, but first. All right, so we're going to be asking the user to give us a number. You know how we did in the first session, we asked them for their favorite number? We're going to be doing that. We're going to say, give me a number to the user. After that, we're going to print out your number plus 4 is, right? Plus, then in parentheses, you're going to put number plus 4, like we got in the first session, right? I know there's no str here, which changes it into a string, right? So that you can print it out. I'm doing that so that it would give me an error. So if we run this right now, we say, or it's going to give me an error, right? So let's say you want to tell them that the code doesn't work right now, okay? Let's say you want to tell them that. So first, you have to have tried here. So you're basically trying this whole code out because you know it's not going to work or something, right? So you're trying it out, or you don't know it's not going to work. And if this doesn't work, you're going to try an except here. You're going to have an except, which basically does something that basically an alternative option for that, right? So now you can say print, sorry, my code doesn't work right now. All right, so if we have this, right? Okay, so now if we have this, right? If this doesn't work, then it's going to print this out. It's basically telling Python to try this code, and if it doesn't work, if it has an error, then print this out instead. With that, instead of giving us an error, right? Do this. If I give up 4, it's going to say, sorry, my code doesn't work right now, right? You can use this in a really nice way, right? So, well, okay, what if you have str here and it works? If it works, the except won't show. So see that your number plus 4 is 8, right? So it works. So what if you're in a confusion, like you don't know if it's gonna work with the str or without the str, right? So you come in here, right? And you're gonna say, seems like that code doesn't work. So try this. You're gonna say that, and then you're going to want this whole thing again, right? Over here. Want the whole thing again over here, and you're putting an str here. let's try this out now. So basically what it does is you're trying to test out if the str, if the one with the string here works, the one without it changing to a string here works, right? If we run this out, right? Of course, we know that this is not going to work. So now if we put this, wait, hold up, something's wrong. Oh yeah, let me run it one more time. So now if we run this, right, you give them the number 3. That's not going to work. So it's now saying, seems like that code doesn't work. Try this code. Now try 3 again. It's going to say your number plus 4 is 7. So if you're confused between, if there are like 2 ways to do something and you don't know which way is right, you can try and accept as well. If you're doing a major code for like your office or for school or something, and you need to cover the error that you have, you can use try and accept as well. So any questions about try and accept? We're good? I should check the chat. It's not working.
Yeah. There's no questions.
I think. Next.
Alright, so that was our session. That's the final session. I know we barely have like 30 seconds, but I do want to explain to people the homework. I mean, this is not required obviously because this is the final session, but I do, like I said in the beginning, I do encourage you to try this homework for yourself, just to like improve upon your skills as a Python programmer, right? So the homework for today is to create a number guessing game, which basically would prompt the user to type in a number, and if that number is higher than the number that you already had, so you have to, first of all, you have to randomly select a number, and we'll teach you how to do that. You have to randomly select a number, and then you have to ask the user to guess what that number is. If they guess higher than the number, then you have to say your guess is too high. If they guess lower than the number, then you have to say your guess is too low. And if their guess is exactly equal to the number, you say, congratulations, you've guessed my number. And you have to keep on asking them this question until they have guessed the number correctly, right? And that's how this number game works. And Jason is going to show you the output of what it looks like, and going to show, actually, before Jason shows you, I'm going to show you how this random thing works, how you can generate a random number. Right? So remember, we were talking about functions, we were talking about things that Python has created that we can use, right? One thing that Python has created that we can use is something called random. So what you have to do is you have to, on the top here, we have to import something called random. We're importing random. Or is Jason's video frozen?
No, yours is frozen.
Oh, mine's frozen? Oops.
Yeah.
Well, if you can hear my voice, you don't really need to see my face.
I go.
So we're importing something called random, and we're going to use that. How we're going to generate a random number using random is we're going to use this thing called random. First, you type in the name of whatever you imported, and you put a dot, and then you put in the word randint, which stands for random integer. Random dot randint, and inside you put in a parentheses, and inside this parentheses, you basically just type in the range of what your random number to be. So I want my number to be anywhere between 1 and 10. And I'm going to set this to a variable called x. So what Python does is it takes this and it selects a random number between 1 and 10, and it assigns it to the number called x. And if I print out x right now, let's say I print x and I run this code, right? Oh, I'm sorry, I'm gonna, it's just 2 at the start, right? If I run it again, it says 3. If I run it one more time, it says 10, right? So every time it's going to generate a random number within the range 1 to 10. And this is how you can use a randomly generated number inside of your guessing game, right? I'm going to show you the output of the guessing game in another repo. So if we
And not only 1 to 10, you can use it in between any, so you can do 1 to 100, right? You can do 1 to 29, 1 to 5, right? You can do that not only from 1, you can do it from 2 to 5, you can do it from 230 to 553. You can keep it like that, right? You can keep it a random number between any 2 numbers, right? All right, so now I'm going to be showing you guys the output of the game, so how the game works. Let's run it. So the game tells you to guess a number. All right, I'm going to say, oh, it's too low. Okay, let's try 5. That's too high. So 3 and 5 in between, that's 4. All right, so as you can see, I did it, right? So I won the game. I guessed the magic number. Let's try that again. One. Try 5 this time. It's too high. 2. I guessed it. I've done it first try before as well. I've guessed the number first try sometimes. So, alright, let's move on. So any question about how the random works? Random, import random. This. You're gonna be using this in your guessing number game if you're going to do it.
No
Alright,
question.
so sorry.
Can you show the homework slide?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure, you can see it.
This will also be on YouTube as well.
Yeah,
So
it'll
like,
be- I just showed you how the game works, right? So
yeah.
you run it, you guess a number. If it's too high, you're gonna say too high. If it's too low, you're gonna say too low. And if it's the exact number, you're gonna say congratulations, you guessed the number, right? You can take multiple guesses. So I'll go on. Okay, so for this whole Python bootcamp, we have a final project for you guys to do. Using everything you learned, you will be making a calculator that has different functions in Python. So the user should be able to pick between whether they want to calculate addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. Okay? Now once the user picks it, the code should ask the user for 2 numbers, and then it has to calculate whatever option is picked. Each operation will be stored inside a function, so whichever one is called is the one that works, right? Basically, if you use addition, right? If the user picks addition, you're going to want to ask them 2 numbers, and you have to calculate the 2 numbers added together, right? Multiplication, you have to ask them 2 numbers and multiply them and show them the answer. So it's basically a calculator. This calculator can be useful for yourself as well, right? So yeah, Asher and I did this. It took us like some time.
I'll share my
Yeah, it's
screen.
hilarious.
Awesome.
Share your screen. I'll stop. All right.
I'm sure I'll share my screen. Alright, so I'm going to run my calculator program in here. So I'm going to press run. And it first should prompt you what operation would you like to perform. And there's addition, multiplication, division, and subtraction. So you have to type in whatever one you want. So I want addition. So I'm going to type in addition. Press enter. And it's going to ask you your first number. Let's say 5. And it's going to ask you your second number. Let's say 6. And then after that, it should say your first number plus your second number is 11. And 11 is 5 plus 6, right? And then it should prompt you if you want to use the calculator again, right? So if you press yes, it is just going to repeat the entire thing over. And if you press no, it's going to break out, right? Let's say yes, and let's do this one more time, right? Yes, what operation would you like to perform? Let's say we misspell multiplication. Let's say we misspell multiplication. We forgot to add in the last n, right? When I do that, it should tell you, please give a proper operator. It should use a try and except block to tell the user that no, you have to give an actual proper operator, right? And then, oh, and you realize your mistake. Oh, I forgot the n at the end there. So you type in the n, and then you do multiplication. Let's say first number is 5, second number is 7, and then it should say your first number times your second number is 35. And it should keep on asking you. You should just keep on doing this until the user presses, I don't want to use the calculator again. So if I press no, I don't want to use the calculator, it should say, thank you for using our calculator, and then it should break out of the loop. All right, and this is very useful, when you're performing like math, and let's say, I don't know, you forgot a calculator, you don't have a calculator. Well, you can just boot up Python, and you can just, you can just boot up Python and you can just use this calculator to perform your math, right? So any questions on how this final project works? Any
Yeah,
questions?
of course, this is optional again, but
Yeah, this is optional. But like if you want to like increase your skills as a programmer, I highly recommend building this calculator. It uses everything we've learned in this bootcamp, and it just combines them into one program, right? Any questions? I'm gonna stop.
we are good. So yeah,
All right. That's our session. Make sure to fill out the feedback form, I guess. It's in the chat somewhere. There's a feedback form. Make sure to fill it out. All right, we're done.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you. I know we had like a bunch of problems, but thank you for like, yeah, thank you for tolerating them.
Yep.
Hi
Sorry for
guys.
that.
So done?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Thank you. Good job. Great job, Ashwin and Jaishnav. I appreciate you a lot actually. You're putting a lot of effort. Really, really awesome actually. And thank you for parents and attending kids and parents, everybody. Really appreciate you. And can you give any feedback, parents or kids? Anybody wants to say something about our class? Okay. Jay இருக்கீங்களா?
I'm here.
Okay. பேசுங்க.
Thank you. Thank you all. ரொம்ப அழகான செஷன் தொடர்ந்து 2-3 வாரம் பண்ணிட்டே இருக்கோம். ஸ்பெஷல் தேங்க்ஸ் டு இவர் நம்ம ஜெய்ஷ்ணவ் அண்ட் அதர் கிடோ. பேர் சொல்லுங்க.
Ashwin.
Yeah. Sorry. So it was a very wonderful session. It is very useful for our kids. Thanks for bringing this to our Sangam. ஸோ கிரேட்டர் அட்லாண்டா தமிழ் சங்கத்தின் மூலமாக இந்த மாதிரி சின்ன சின்ன விஷயங்கள் பண்ணிட்டே இருக்கோம். எஸ்பெஷலி லேட்டஸ்ட் டெக்னாலஜிஸ்லாம் கொண்டு வந்து அந்த மாதிரி பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கோம். அதுல ஒன் ஆஃப் த திங் இஸ் த பைத்தான் லாங்குவேஜ். மார்னிங்கும் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா ஆர்டிஃபிஷியல் இன்டெலிஜென்ஸ் நம்ம பண்ணியிருந்தோம். ஸோ அதுவும் இட் வாஸ் வெரி குட். ஸோ ஃபியூச்சர்லயும் இதே மாதிரி நிறைய செஷன்ஸ் நம்மளால பண்ண முடியும். அந்த ஒரு கான்ஃபிடன்ஸ் கொடுத்த ஜெய்ஷ்ணவ் அண்ட் உங்களுக்கு ரொம்ப தேங்க்ஸ். ஸோ தேங்க்ஸ் ஃபார் ஆல் த பேரண்ட்ஸ் அண்ட் கிட்ஸ். It is very benefit for all the kids. So really want to learn all these kind of latest technologies. Thanks a lot. And then பூங்கொடிக்கு என்னுடைய மனமார்ந்த நன்றிகள். நீங்க அதை இனிஷியேட் பண்ணி அதை கொண்டு வந்து பண்ணணுன்ற முனைப்புல நீங்க பண்ணதுக்கு என்னுடைய மனமார்ந்த நன்றிகள் பூங்கொடி.
தேங்க்யூ ஜெய், தேங்க்யூ. இந்த ஆப்பர்ச்சுனிட்டி கொடுத்த உங்களுக்கு தான் வந்துட்டு தேங்க்ஸ் சொல்லணும். இட்ஸ் ரியலி வண்டர்ஃபுல் ஆப்பர்ச்சுனிட்டி ஃபார் தேங்க்யூ. அண்ட் மகேந்திரன் இந்த பூட்ஸ் கேம்ப் செஷன் ஃபுல்லா எனக்காக இவ்வளோ ஹெல்ப் பண்ணியிருக்காரு. மகேந்திரன் இருக்கீங்களா? கொஞ்சம் பிக்சருக்கு வாங்க. ஓகே, ரொம்ப ரொம்ப நன்றிங்க. அதே மாதிரி கிரேட்டர் அட்லாண்டா தமிழ் சங்கத்துக்கும் நன்றி, ஜெய் அவர்களுக்கும் நன்றி, பேரண்ட்ஸ்க்கும் ரொம்ப ரொம்ப நன்றிங்க. ஸோ அட்டன் பண்ண எல்லா செஷன்ஸ்க்கும் ரொம்ப மீன் லாட் ஆஃப் எஃபர்ட் போட்டிருக்கோம். அதே மாதிரி நீங்கள் நல்ல சப்போர்ட் கொடுத்துருக்கீங்க. பேரண்ட்ஸ் அண்ட் கிட்ஸ் எல்லாம் ரொம்ப சப்போர்ட் பண்ணியிருக்கீங்க. ரொம்ப நன்றிங்க. ஸோ யா, ஆக்சுவலி பார்ட்டிசிபேட் சர்டிஃபிகேட் கொடுக்க போகிறேன் ஜெய், சொல்லிடுங்க ஜெய்.
யா, கிட்ஸ் யாரெல்லாம் இந்த அந்த வீக் ஃபுல்லா செஷன் எல்லாரும் அட்டென்ட் பண்ணாங்க அவங்க எல்லாருக்குமே பார்ட்டிசிபேட் சர்டிஃபிகேட் இருக்க போகுது. அண்ட் தென் த ஸ்பெஷல் சர்டிஃபிகேட் டு அஸ்வின் அண்ட் ஜெய்ஷ்ணவ் வில் கம் வெரி சூன். உங்களுக்கும் ஒரு ஸ்பெஷல் கிஃப்ட் இருக்குது இதனால. அண்ட் தென் உங்களுக்கு வாலண்டியர் ஹவர்ஸும் வந்து யூ வில் கெட் த வாலண்டியர் ஹவர்ஸ் டூ. ஸோ definitely yes, yeah. And then my special thanks to Mahendran, the technical team. Mahendran நேத்துல இருந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா this is his third session நம்மளுக்காக அரேஞ்ச் பண்ணி பேக் டு பேக் உட்காந்து ஒர்க் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்காரு. இட்ஸ் நாட் a small thing. It's very very like dedicated volunteer we got for GATS this year. Thanks Mahendran.
Thank you Jay.
Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you.
I guess he just saw that. That's it.
Yeah, bye.